I got a call from a magazine yesterday. I think it was called Interview. I said, Thursday's out, but how about never? Is never good for you?
But didn't she have problems when she was in New York?
Well, we're all allowed to indulge ourselves, aren't we? At that time, New York City was on fire. All the chandeliers were lit. One time, I went to join them at de rigueur for little kilka shows, and there they were. I could see them all the way in the back of the restaurant when I walked in the front door. Charles was like a beacon, and when she was in a happy mood, it was like being with the Hope Diamond. She blazed. I sat down with them and noticed they had brought their own bottle, and I looked at the label. To my great surprise, there on the table was the largest bottle of Chanel No. 5 I had seen. And they were drinking it on the rocks. Now, Chanel No. 5 on the rocks, isn't that the most glamorous thing you've ever heard? Of course, everyone is known to enjoy a glass or two now and then these days, but Charles, she invented it.
She moved in next door when she was a little girl. If you want to call a mile away next door. We live on a dairy farm, and Charles Valentine and her mother, Kara, and her sister Lily and her brother Lauren live down the road. May have been a mile, but when the Valentine kids went out to play, you really knew it. They all had small-gauge shotguns. They shot cans, they shot watermelons, old boots, tomatoes if they were a good shot, marshmallows if they were an excellent shot. Pumpkins, old tires, big pieces of paper they had drawn to look like the bad guys. China teacups. One time I remember an old and a million other things off a fence that ran around the back of their house. If you ask me, they're the ones who shot up the sign that says, "Welcome to Antler," as you drive into town. For Antler, or for anywhere, they were wild.
She carried rhinestones around in her pockets. We play hide and seek. I knew all of her favorite hiding places because those glittery stones would fall out of her pockets, and I'd see a little pile of these sparkles. I'm 12 years older, and I'd always find her. She'd say, "How'd you find me? How did you find me?" They'd fall out of her pockets, see? When she crouched down to hide, she couldn't hide.
One time we snuck a wine cooler from the picnic chest, and we went up and laid on a hill and sipped some of it. She kept saying the clouds looked like famous people from Hollywood or London. Famous people she knew about, but I'd never heard of. Or maybe people she just made up. So we just laid there, and I was almost asleep when she said, "Life's too hard. I just want to be a picture in a magazine."
Everything was fairy tales with Charles. It was all stories and make-believe. You could say she didn't really live in town with me and Mom and Lily. Even when Charles still lived in Antler, it was forever and always about somewhere else.
Whenever Charles was around, so was Lyle Borkin. They were the exact same age, both Sagittarius, I think.
They were never apart. Lyle was always at our house, or the two of them were down to Sarah's. They were crazy. Like two weird people from a circus or what have you.
Charles and Lyle had ideas I would never dream of, I'll say that. Like inconspicuous consumption or the nightclub, the Bowl.
They had a little nickel and dime rock scene that revolved around a ridiculous idea called inconspicuous consumption. The original movement, this was all back in Iowa.
No, Ohio.
Yeah, that's right, in Ohio, was so exclusive that the nightclub that served as the movement's cradle existed within the confines of a bathroom stall. And they put up a velvet rope and had a little club in there, and they called it, naturally, the Bowl. So this Lyle had a terrific idea. I love this. They performed songs that the crowd couldn't hear, that they whispered to each audience member one at a time.
Soldier love, soldier love, soldier love for $1.50. Soldier love for $1.50. soldier love, soldier love, soldier love, soldier love for $1.50.
Nothing had ever been done like it. Not in the art world, not in cinema, not in fashion, certainly not in rock and roll. Never, never was there anything like it in the whole history of glamour.
She was going to work in the salon, too. She came from a family tree where each branch and leaf contained cosmetologists. So the night that Kara's cuts burned down, they say it was faulty wiring and some electric rollers. It was all over. The long line of beauticians came to a stop at Charles.
I guess Charles put the Valentine name up in lights and red lipstick. But before then, the history of our family could be written in bourbon. Drunken Stag, that's the family brand. But after the salon burned down, there was a little less drinking. Mother got a little money and started on a class making statues of mushrooms and deer for people's front yard. She's got the creative thing, too. And now she's got a boyfriend that works over at the air freshener factory.
One day, after the beauty salon burned down, she decided the circus was going to leave town. And overnight, the Ferris wheel, the colored lights, the grease paint, and the tent disappeared. Like that.
After the salon burned down, I discovered how much I wanted to get away from Antler. With its cloying air freshener air and its rumor-hungry, sad teenage citizens, I couldn't even drink the water in town anymore because the taste reminded me of the atmosphere. I drove around a tiny airplane creeping above the hot tops of the trees. The vapor trail crossed the sky like a line pointing out. By the time I pulled up to the only working stoplight in town, I knew I had to leave. I drove Lauren's Cadillac back to his house at the edge of town, and I strung the hammock between the twin Cadillacs. I knew then what I was going to do. I was going to be conspicuous. I was going to New York.
She came to the alibi. I'd never seen her in there before, and she stood in the doorway. She ordered a ginger ale and played a song on the jukebox. She talked to me about when we were kids and said I liked it here then. So we talked for a while, and she seemed kind of far away and sad. She didn't even ask me to drive her anywhere or tell me about some crazy ideas for a band or a play or a story. After about an hour, she said, "I'm going to go." And I thought she meant she was going home, but then I realized she was never coming back.
I had always dreamed of New York, an impossible ideal I got from my mother. My mom only visited once to see a new museum of cosmetology they were opening on Fifth Avenue. She never got over that Circle Line tour and the fact that she was only seeing the Big Apple as an outsider. New York, like the Emerald City of Oz, everything would be perfect there. And all my childhood games and schemes, all my stories and imaginations had been placed square in a geography I'd never visited. I saw New York for the first time driving into town in a family from St. Louis's car. I gorged my eyes on the skyline, all those skyscrapers like flashy fingernails growing on the hands of a small-town manicurist. It hurt my soul that first time seeing New York City, that I was not yet a part of its history. And I resolved that whatever was happening in those concrete caverns and penthouses and harbors, I would not be left out.